Okay. So first of all, like, can you introduce yourself for the coaches in Taiwan?
Sure. My name is Josh Fan. I handle Jeremy Lin's skill development training in the off season and majority of his strength and conditioning work. I've worked with him since he was a freshman at Harvard, and now he's playing for the Beijing Ducks in the CBA, and he's over there in Beijing. But I wasn't able to travel with him this past season.
So is it like 12 or like how many years you've been working with them?
I've been working with him since I've been 20 years old. I'm 36, so 16 years.
Whoa, that's cool, man.
Well, yeah, we've known each other for that long. And I'd say like I started working for him full time after his first year on the Houston Rockets.
Oh,
yeah.
So after that, basically like, is that means like you just train him or you got other athletes?
Well, I could say I have his younger brother, Joseph Lin, who's playing in Taiwan right now.
Yeah.
So, Joseph would train with us as well. But yeah, I just exclusively train Jeremy, mainly because, for an athlete of his caliber requires full attention, full time, concentration. And, I would move to whatever city he would be living in. And, most of our off seasons would be in Palo Alto, California. So we would do our training at Stanford and that kind of thing. So I would move there at the beginning of the off season, be there all the way to, preseason, and then move with him to whatever city he was playing for that year.
That was cool.
So no other players, basically, besides other players who potentially would train with us during that off season. So, randomly, like one off season when we were training in China, like Guo Island trained with us for, a couple weeks. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's cool. Like the posters in the background. I'm feeling that Penny poster.
I'm a big fan of Kobe's.
Yeah, I can tell.
So I know today's like topic we've been talked through before, but still I still want you to like talk a little bit like periodization or movement with the coaches in Taiwan, okay?
Sure. I can't remember what we talked about, so it's been so long.
Yeah. Sorry about always changing time, man. Sorry.
No. All good. Happy to be able to chat with you.
So first of the question is like kind of like want to know your thoughts about like periodization, or like you mentioned before how many times you have to train like Jeremy Lin, and how would you like program his like training sessions, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Maybe I can just share more generally instead of getting too much into the weeds. But yeah, I think it always starts in the off season. It always starts with kind of what is the goal of the off season, and as you know, players change, and Jeremy's had one or two bigger injuries. So understanding like what is the need of that specific off season, and that would be determined by potentially what team he'd be playing on, their playing style, his age, what's going on in his body after that season, like how is he feeling, that kind of stuff. So I think it always starts with determining the need of the off season or the goal of the off season. And not every off season is the same length. And sometimes, we have to plan for longer Asia trips. And so I think first and foremost is understanding the needs, and then how much time you have, right?
Yeah,
so, in Taiwan, you were sharing like how sometimes you only have 2 weeks with a player. Well, how are you going to do periodization in or multiple blocks of training in 2 weeks. Like, what are you going to do? Like every day train another quality? It's not enough time for adaptation, right? So knowing how long we have to the start of the preseason is the second question, you know, I have to ask. And then kind of like where we're going to be training, what kind of access to what type of equipment are going to be always important. And then based on kind of whatever goals we determine, whether it's, you know, a first step or vertical jump or something like that, you know, trying to develop certain KPIs like metrics or ways we're going to measure whether he's experiencing success or not, and then kind of go from there. So I would say right when the season ends, Jeremy kind of takes an off season. Once when the season ends, Jeremy goes on vacation and takes some time off. And that's just one, for the entire body to kind of rest and from the grind of the season. And then two, to mentally and emotionally, the season can be so taxing for preparing for games and, you know, the whole lifestyle of professional sports is not easy. And so just taking a vacation from that and resetting his mind. And then when we start, you know, based on when we start is usually, I would say, anywhere from four weeks. Usually takes four weeks completely off from basketball. And then I think the first phase is kind of like a very general development stage where he's getting back into it and we're just training. It's not general as in like we're doing, you know, just like super basic stuff, but getting his body used to load, very low level plyometrics and general strength training. So whether we're doing, you know, elevated trap bar deadlift, squats, bench press, the specific exercise I wouldn't say is that important, but the importance is during this phase is rebuilding his base. I think that's really important. We try not to, you know, early on in his career, it was very easy to want to get to certain numbers of lifts. Like, oh, we want him to have this squat or this bench. But what we found is, you know, you would train and maybe you would get him really strong and into this number, and then the season would start. He would go to a different team or whatnot, and he would lose basically everything he got, which is okay in some regards, like expected in some regards. But then, you know, off season come, and then he would spend the whole off season just to try to build it up, and then he would lose it. So we tend not to focus too much on like, we have to get you. I think some coaches are like, oh, you need a body squat, like body weight. You need a barbell back squat 2 times your weight, or some type of kind of arbitrary metric. So I think, you know, during that general preparation phase, it's also building the base on the court too. So whatever skill set we're truly trying to emphasize or hone in on that season, that off season, you know, developing the base, like breaking down that quality. So if it's one move that he's trying to work on, it's like, what are the blocks of that move? And then kind of dissecting that move and then beginning to start training those foundational qualities of that movement. And then obviously the closer towards the end of the off season or towards preseason, things generally have become much more specific to training. Also, time on the court has increased. So volume and intensity has increased. So we kind of have to start tapering down a little bit in the weight room, and it becomes more of a, I wouldn't say maintenance phase. You could say more well, I don't know exactly what I call it, but intensity probably goes down, or volume, time in the weight room would probably go down a little bit as we increase kind of the load on the court.
Cool.
Sorry, that was me rambling for a really long time.
It's okay. I love it, man. So basically, you mentioned like you, in the early of his career, you spend a lot of time like basic strength training to like we just maybe like squat like 2 times body weight, whatever, and you lose it during the season, right?
Yeah.
So did you like do anything like different like in these few years?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference is undulating load during the week. I know that's like a very basic concept, but early on, when an athlete is younger and they want to go, 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 and it's all about the grind and working hard and exactly what is on your wall behind you, which is Mamba mentality, no days off, more work is better. And that just doesn't work with the body.
Yes.
It's important to have the mentality of working hard. And well, it's important to have that killer instinct and that killer mentality and the desire to continually improve. But that doesn't mean every day of training has to look the same. And I think that's the biggest difference, right? Before, our training would be, you have to make 500 shots every day.
Yeah.
Like 500, at least minimum 500 threes a day, and the volume would be like, okay, we at least need, 900 shots made a day or something like that. So I think the importance of changing load and intensity, during the week and having different, making sure it's not like constant high intensity, because what happens is, Thursday, Friday comes out and then the player is burnt out. The training quality is not good. And then you're forced to reduce load and everything because they're not moving how you want to move. And then what's the point? Like you're training, you're no longer training efficiently, right? The season is so taxing and challenging itself. It's about preparing him to get through it and perform at the highest level during the season. Not experience that type of load 3.5 months away from his season. And I think that's the biggest key is managing that load. So what I mean by that, like, what does that look like in reality? It's, Monday, because generally Sunday is off for us. Monday, it's not going to be like, all right, Monday, let's go. Like, let's get after it. 3-hour practice. We usually treat that as kind of like a stim day, like a stimulation day, where it's okay. You usually don't feel good after something like a day off because everything is, your body's resting and adapting to the physical stress of, the week. So Monday, we're just going to use it to kind of like prime you and get you ready for the week, and then Tuesday might be, a higher intensity day, or like a medium to high. Wednesday might be high. And then Thursday, we kind of taper off again, where it's more like active recovery, whether he's doing more, Pilates, mobility work, or other, recovery modalities, that massage and that kind of stuff. And then Friday is kind of like another stim day, but probably higher than Monday. And then Saturday is another high intensity day. So it also depends where in the off season we are, because then we start to try to build in live play. So whether that's 1-on-1, 5-on-5, and depending on how much we train that week, because I treat 5-on-5 as a game day, basically. That's pretty intensive, 90 minutes to 120 minutes of, I wouldn't say it's NBA intensity, but it's probably as close as we're going to get to maybe during the off season, right? So we also have to taper that too, right? Like how long are you going to be playing? Like, it doesn't have to, just because we're playing pickup doesn't mean we play 2 hours every single time. It's also, maybe we start, like, we're not playing more than 45 minutes first, or even smaller.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So that kind of answered the question I have about periodization. And next would be like power training for basketball players. Like, I know there's gonna be a lot of like coaches gonna do like power clean, hand high pull, that kind of stuff. But probably like I want to know your thoughts about like basketball player doing like what is the best, or what do you think suits the best for basketball player for training, like jumping higher or running faster?
Yeah, I think again, it always depends on the player's anatomy or size, right? Like you have probably some big guys who are trash at back squatting, right? But then you have some big guys who are really mobile and nimble and have no issue squatting to parallel. And I'm sure you have some small guys who can clean really well. And then you have some big guys. Like what I'm saying is, I'm sure you have a variety. Like, no, it's not a one size fits all, right? And I think maybe that's what you're alluding to is, coaches want to fit players into their program and say, like, you have to do this program, instead of kind of understanding the player and kind of their needs, and then building a program for the player. So, in terms of power, like we have done, weightlifting before.
Yeah.
By weightlifting, I mean, the Olympic lifts of cleans and power cleans. But I just think the risk and reward is kind of maybe not worth it in regards to Olympic lifts can be very taxing on the wrist.
Yeah.
And guess what? I need the wrist to do in basketball. I needed to shoot and dribble the ball. So technically, as a strength coach, your number one rule is do no harm, right? So if I have to tell Jeremy we need to take 2 weeks off in an off season of only a 14-week off season, that's a significant portion of the off season, right? And it depends on what phase we are. If we're already past the general preparation phase or general development phase, and we're closer to the middle or the end, that could be a very costly setback, right? So I think for me, it's always, how can I accomplish maybe the similar qualities through a safer modality, right? So we all know like trap bar deadlift, right? Trap bar deadlift learning curve is very low, right? It's not exactly the same, right? But, A Unit is a brand that has a trap bar with a rotating handle. So you can do a kind of like a clean where you have the trap bar, you start at the bottom, and then the handles rotate at the top, which is like a lot safer than, a barbell. Obviously, like I know you train a lot of kids and athletes in the clean and those movements. Like if you have them from a young age of 14 years old and you've been able to teach them the technique and build the right base and have lots of off seasons with them, cool. Like, if you found that has worked, like that's a great way to develop power. But I'm working with an older athlete, right? And whose livelihood depends on it. I can't afford some of the potential risks. I mean, he did weightlift, this past off season, but it was mainly one, we didn't have access to a gym during COVID. So we were not forced, but we, decided to use, a certain facility that specialized it. And, Jeremy wanted to really try it for one off season and see, what could happen. But, that wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah.
If you were asking me.
It's like the most important thing for the player is like playing the game. And what we as strength coach should do is like try to minimum the risk of them getting injury, right? And that includes like whatever movement we do in the gym.
For sure.
Yeah. So if it's for me, it's like I would probably do like more plyo or like more sprinting, whatever, or like just maybe like trap bar, like jump, that kind of stuff, instead of like Olympic lifting. I mean, like what you just mentioned, it's like the learning curve is like it's gonna take too long, man. And let them to be able to like catch the bar is like too risky for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to highlight what you said, that all strength coaches should think about or know is, yes, first the player needs to be a PhD in their sport first.
Yes.
All right. It's PhD in their sport first, then, and the weight room is supposed to help them enhance whatever is on the court, right? You rarely on a team, the best athlete in the weight room is rarely the best player on the court, right?
Yeah.
Like Trae Young is not a beast in the weight room. Okay. Like, has anyone asked, like, what does Trae Young squat, or what does Kyrie Irving single, like, rear foot elevated split squat, or what does Kemba Walker squat? Like,
who cares, man?
Who care? We care in the case, like, we want the athlete to be robust and strong and not get injured, but we don't care as in it needs to hit a certain number unless it's so low. So what I mean by that is, if Trae Young can't trap bar deadlift 135, okay, well, that's a huge discrepancy, right? Like he lacks the power or the strength to be able to do, 60% of his body weight. Like, okay, then it might be like, okay, well, we need to increase his strength, right? And then you're going to have players who are like that, who are so weak. And it's like, okay, yeah, we do need to improve your numbers. But once it gets to a certain point, Jeremy's 200 pounds. 2 times body weight back squat is 400 pounds. Like 400 pounds back squat. Do you know how long it's going to take to get him to a 400-pound back squat? Like, why would I spend all my time on that?
Yeah.
There's very little correlation with performance past, 1.5, 1.7. Around there. So always, and that's the beauty of being a skills coach, is I know that the most important is his skill and how he does on the court. And the weight room is to enhance and supplement the sport, not to take away, right? And that's hard if you're purely a strength coach and you don't have any communication with the team or the player development coach. You tend to operate in your own silo or your own world, right? And you think your stuff is the most important, right? When we have to think of the player globally. And when I say globally, when you're dealing with a professional athlete, you have to consider the global, the stress they're receiving. It's no longer is it just weight room. It's no longer just the stress that they accumulate on the court, but it's also off the court now, right? So endorsement, contract negotiations, other issues that they might experience, as you make more money and you become a bigger name, you tend to have to deal with more things and more issues, right?
Yeah.
And like Jeremy, there's a lot of interviews, there's a lot of requests, there's a lot of things. Like now I have to start accommodating for that off the court stress as well, because it does affect on the court performance and in the weight room performance.
Cool.
Sorry for that tangent.
Yeah, no problem, man. No worries. So I'm gonna jump into the next question. Next topic, I want to talk about like injury prevention.
Sure.
So I know you do like, forgot the name, man. Isometric during the season. Forgot the name. So some
You ask everybody about isometrics. How could you forget about isos?
Forgot the name. So I know you do a lot of like isometric lunges or like.
Yeah. How do you know? Did I tell you?
No, I follow Instagram, man.
Oh.
So isometric lunges or you do like upper body like plyo, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How do you like thought of these kind of stuff for training like Jeremy?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously ISOs are all the rage right now in the strength and conditioning community. So you know, I like ISOs for, you know, the common reasons of developing strength in that position, right? We know that there's carryover based on the position to a certain amount of degrees, right? And being strong in those positions, right? So to me, that lunge position is probably, you know, most specific to, not most specific, but is a very specific position to a basketball position of driving by somebody, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, other players who are required to play defense for long periods of time, developing, you know, good positional strength in the bottom of a defensive position to be able to live kind of in that position. You know, it's funny, it's sport coaches might have not known what isometric was, but, you know, you can see plenty of Taiwan coaches where, you know, a kid's got to stay in that defensive position, slide, and stay in that position for really long. Maybe not the slide part, but stay. You're gonna get into that defensive position. We're gonna keep you there for 5 minutes or something like that. So, you know, there's the positional strength component. There's also the being able to develop certain connection to the muscles. So, for instance, you know, when we are doing the iso lunge hold, which just to explain to people who are listening, you get into, you know, a long lunge position. You're trying to keep that, you know, back leg straight and the front leg is, you know, relatively at parallel, but it's not good enough to just passively hold that position. We're not just passively holding that position. The front leg is pulling the ground, actively activating the hamstring of the front leg. And then the back leg, you're trying to squeeze that glute and drive into the leg, drive into the ground. So trying to create a scissor action with the 2 feet. So front leg pulling, back leg pushing, but that's also getting those certain muscles to fire, right? Teaching that front leg to the hamstring to be able to fire and pull the ground as he's like going through that first step. And also, you know, training at different shin angles, right? So we know like a much more vertical, you know, shin angle is probably optimal for deceleration. And then, you know, having that steeper shin angle is more optimal for acceleration, right? So training it with different emphasis as well. And then in regards to the upper body, you know, Jeremy playing in Beijing, he saw a lot of physical contact with teams trying to be very physical with him, almost similar to, you know, think Detroit Pistons against Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Lambeer, this type of treatment where if you go into the paint, they want to make sure you feel some contact, right? So that's kind of where the concept of upper body plyometrics, I don't want to say born, like lots of people do upper body plyometrics, but just adding unique stimuluses of moving laterally, having the arm more extended, just training the upper body and the wrists and those things to experience, you know, we do plenty of depth drops and those types of jumps for our lower body. There's no reason why we can't have some volume for the upper body. And for me, it's that in basketball, the elite skills is not match strength. It's the elite ability to contract and relax. Yeah. And so bodies those plyos require a lot of, you know, maximal contraction, relax, and that type of quality. So I like to train it. It's not the only thing we do. It's, obviously the easier, sexier thing to put on Instagram, but I don't put every drill we do on Instagram, mainly because I'm lazy.
I really think that you should probably put more stuff on the Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of coaches in Taiwan want to know how you train Jeremy.
Well, none of them have reached out to me.
Is that true? You. I mean, there's a lot of coaches want to know about that, and since they know we have talked before, they always ask me. I'm like, how the hell do I know?
I would love to. I've spent many off seasons in Taiwan, and it's not that I think I would just love to share our experience. Our experience is N equals one, just one person's experience. Obviously, it's a great experience to be able to play in the NBA that long, but it's all about kind of sharing what's worked for us, and whatever these coaches who are listening can take away. I hope there's just one thing or two things that they can take away to help their own program. But at the end of the day, the most important skill is problem solving and critical thinking about what your players need, and not pigeonholing these players into your method or your way. It has to be your way, and having kind of an open mind, because I think that's the most important quality that I've had to pick up is moving from NBA team to NBA team. You meet different NBA strength coaches and player development coaches, and you learn to try to keep an open mind to just have a better global understanding of how other people think and what works, right? It's always a constant learning process. And once you feel like you've developed the perfect methodology, you probably need to take a trip somewhere else or go visit someone else, or have a call with someone, because having that fixed mindset versus kind of a growth mindset is not really where you want to be.
Yeah, man. So last thing, and I'm gonna let you go. Okay. So as a skill develop coach and a strength coach, so how do combining those two into one role? I mean, one character as you. I mean, how do you think this helps you to be different with the other coaches?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is monitoring load and understanding the intensity of the drills we do on the court, and understanding the demands of what we're doing in the weight room. And so that's a hard thing, right? So if you're a strength and conditioning coach and you go to say you're on a team, and you're talking to the player development coach, you're saying, hey, today we should maybe do lower intensity, let's give him an easier workout. Well, he might think an easy workout is X, and you might think, oh my gosh, I said lower intensity, why is he doing this drill? Do you know what I mean? And then there might be a complete miss in terms of intensity and volume. And so for me, being able to be know what Jeremy does in the weight room, but also have an understanding of what are the demands of the drill we're doing, and that day I'm able to regulate his load much better during the week, versus most teams, most players will go to your gym or a gym, do the strength and conditioning work. The coach will have no contact with whoever's in skill development. The skill development guy will have no contact with the strength coach, and there's no congruency of training of weight room and on the court. And you might talk, some strength coaches might talk to their skill development coach, but then there's aspect of actually seeing it. I'm part of both sessions. So I see what is done, and I'm able also to see how his body is reacting to it. So, there's, in the NBA now, they have a lot of devices, GPS tracking devices, right? They have like Catapult, they have Connexon, which is able to measure the time motion demands of the sport, right? So I think that's really important is knowing which drills cause intense amount of fatigue, which drills are considered high intensity, and then also understanding like rep ranges, right? So if you're like, oh, you have to go to 7 in a row, well, what if the guy takes 30 tries then to do 7 in a row? Then you've increased load like crazy. You spiked it based on him needing to accomplish it. And there's days for that. But I think that is the greatest advantage, is knowing, how intense the workout was on the court, and then also being able to adjust real time. I think that is an intuitive skill that a lot of skill development coaches, like, they might not know the names and everything, but they can tell when a player is, it's like, ooh, this drill is a little too high in intensity. Oh, this is a little too much. Like, oh, probably need to start tapering it down. Oh, let me give him another drill where he can recover. So I think great skill coaches like intuitively know how to do this based off years of experience. They know. So I'm not here telling them they don't know. I'm just saying the benefits of doing that is to making sure that what we're doing in the weight room is transferring on the court, and it's one like seamless block of training, and then also understanding how much volume he's doing for the day. Also living with him, I'm able to kind of see the off-court stress, right? So how is he sleeping? What's going on in his life? What did he have to do off the court? Okay, like, so time on feet is a huge indicator of load. How much time the athlete spends on their feet is very important, right? So what if he's got a 4-hour foundation event after training in the evening? He might think it's low load, or whatever. The athlete might think like, oh, I'm just, I just went on a walk with, my friend. It's like, oh, how long was the walk? Oh, we walked, for 2 hours. It's like, like you're like, okay. Or, like other players do other stuff. And it's like, you're like, okay, no wonder you're exhausted today, because yesterday was a super light day. I don't know why you're coming in today feeling like this. So I think, the benefit is being able to see globally what's going on. We track his sleep. We track, what goes into his body, massages that week, chiropractic treatments, needling, like all that stuff you have to account for in terms of load. And then, how many interviews are you doing this week? How many appearances do you have to do this week? Those are all things that, play into it, because stress is a huge killer of gains, right? Stress off the court can kill gains like that, and it can get that body super tight. So it's important to understand that. And I think coaches out there in Taiwan, or who, your main demographic is, I think understanding that piece, I think would really be able to allow you to better help your players.
Yeah. Thanks, man. That's like all the questions I have today.
Was that helpful, or was I just rambling?
Sure, man. And that really helped.
I know you talk to a lot of strength coaches and a lot of big name people, so just want to make sure.
No, you're good. You're good. I learned a lot, man. Really true. I'm enjoying talking to you. It's like just like busy for both of us, so not really being able to like have the time to talk to you recently.
Yeah, we can do it again, and we can talk about a more specific topic, or if your coaches have more specific questions,
cool,
let's do it again, and maybe we have other coaches come on and whatever. Man, I'm all about helping other people in the community, and just not even helping, just sharing my own personal experience, I guess. and
Cool.
learning. I've learned a lot from the people you've had on too. So keep up the great work.
Love it. Probably gonna invite you like soon, but let me make sure the time, okay?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, you got my number, man. Happy to help.
Thanks.
All right. Bye. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Okay.